We are off the backboard, not throwing any oops off the backboard today because we got a little bit of red on our screen. We decided to get a little frisky yesterday, and it may have come back to bite us in the ass. But today is a new day, and that is all that matters. Mr. Jonathan Macri, JC Macri, NBA from Knicks Film School, joining me as always on Off the Backboard. Jonathan, appreciate it. Hope you've recovered from last night at this point.
Still licking the wounds of losing to a team with CLT for some reason on the front of their uniform. That also happened to have 20 wins going into that game. But you live, you learn, you go out west, and you hopefully rebound. But we'll get into our best bets picks in a second. But that added insult to injury for sure.
Yeah, we have Nick's Corner coming up in a little bit. It's kind of hard to, just kind of dance around it. So we'll be quick. I mean, you see it on your screen. We got interesting last night. We usually stick to the minus 110s. We go into plus hundreds, plus 120s, things like that. But I saw yours and I was like, screw it. I can't be the only one with like a minus 120 bet. Look, I should have just taken the Nets at that point because they covered. And I was, just checking in on that Knicks score because I had another game on. And I was like, oh boy, this is definitely not happening today. But that's okay. You win some, you lose some. And look, we weren't the only ones that lost last night. As you're going to see with your most bet on props for last night for DraftKings, it was a pretty rough day in general, honestly. And some of these looked pretty good. Like Tyus Jones had a couple, had like 4 straight floaters in the fourth quarter for Memphis. Cam Johnson has been good for Brooklyn. But again, another 2 for 5 day. Not a pretty slate for the public.
I feel like the Macau bets from here on in, I'll be very curious to see how drastically those numbers change as far as what the numbers end up being, because it sure seems like he's the lead option by a healthy margin in Brooklyn now, ever since he's got traded there and he's kind of settled in. So good job by the public on that. And yeah, the other one, I mean, obviously everybody's been waiting. It's 60 some odd games into the year, but for the Warriors to become the Warriors again. So who knows? Maybe Steph has one final hot stretch left in him.
And it didn't happen last night. And we hit some of our spreads last night. Maybe we should have just taken it a little easier because I think you had warned against taking the Warriors. I think you were all over Thunder +4. Just in general last night, just putting up the scoreboard, what really stood out to you? Because we had some interesting results last night. We talk about, the Warriors, again, continue to suck on the road. Your Pistons giving the Magic a run for best team against the spread in the league. The Magic did lose, so it's something to look at. Anything else really stand out to you here? Besides the Knicks, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, look, for as much as RJ fell 3 shy of getting the 30, even though he had 25 after 3 quarters, but we won't talk about that. I'll give myself a pat on the back for everything else. Again, Pistons, frisky team. They were frisky against the Wizards. I didn't get the Bucks line when I was looking at it in the moment, and sure, it didn't end up making sense in retrospect. And then we'll keep hammering it. Do not trust the Mavs as far as you could throw them. They just do not come through as far as the betting public is concerned. And yet again, they did not come through last night. So keep riding whoever they're playing for as long as it makes sense.
Oh, interesting you say that because they are playing tonight as well. And honestly, I think I'm going against your word, and I think I might be taking the Mavs tonight, though. I am not going to feel good about it. That's for damn sure. Let's get into our Knicks quarter, though. Last night, 9-game winning streak going into a game against a team that has 20 wins. The CLT Hornets. Again, makes no sense as to why it's CLT and not just CHA. But alas, I don't make the jerseys. Tell me your thoughts about last night, what went wrong, and just what's coming up for the Knicks.
Yeah, team looked tired, although none of the players wanted to blame it on that afterwards, to their credit. But when your top 3 offensive options in Julius Randle, Emmanuel Quickly, and RJ Barrett finished the game by going 5 of their last 28 from the field over most of the second half, that's generally not a winning formula. They got good shots, didn't go in. Hornets made enough. So, yeah, we look forward to the West Coast trip that I think is going to be interesting. I'll be very curious to see what some of the lines are here. I mean, I would expect the Knicks to be underdogs in at least two of these games, the next two, and then we'll see what happens against Sacramento and the Clippers, and then going into LA and then Portland, which is always a tough place to play.
Yeah, I mean, I see the Kings game, them being, I don't know, maybe a 2.5-point underdog, something like that. But I mean, don't sleep on the Clippers. The fact that they are one spot ahead of the Lakers in the West standings, like they are right there. The Clippers have struggled again for as much as the Lakers have impressed last night in a win against the Ja Morantless Grizzlies. Jaren Jackson Jr. got into foul trouble down the stretch. I got no Brandon Clark for the rest of the season. I don't know. Like the Clippers have not given me much of a reason to be encouraged. I think the Knicks have a chance to go 3 for 4 here, maybe go 4 for 4. And this could be an interesting litmus test because the Knicks should go at bare minimum 2-2 if they are really as good of a team as they have shown this last week.
I would sign for 2-2 right now. As far as the Clippers are concerned, Clippers played a really, really strong game against the Knicks in MSG the last time those teams played, and the Knicks were down by, I think it was 15 points or 13 points, maybe even a little bit more in the fourth quarter, and the Knicks just kind of on the last 5 minutes of the game went on a run and actually took a 3-point lead before went to overtime and LA won it. But I've certain things this NBA season I can't seem to quit, and one of those things is when the Clippers have their big two out there, they'll say that they are a quite a good basketball team. So assuming Kawhi plays, assuming Paul George plays, I give them credit. I think it'll be a tough game.
Well, if they're playing the Knicks, it's their big three of Kawhi, Paul George, and of course Nick Batum, who's apparently a Knicks killer. Apparently, it's 2023, and apparently Nick Batum is still hitting big shots. Pretty funny. But let's get into the pulse of the public for tonight. We have an interesting slate again to get to. Again, these are the games that the public are backing the most favored teams in terms of the spread, where the money is going. Again, if you see handle, that means the amount of money. If you see bets, that is the amount of bets that are going on these teams. We have Dallas on there, public enemy number one, getting 85% of the bets at -2.5. This line started at -1 this morning. Again, Dallas played last night. The Pelicans have kind of sucked recently. Got a couple teams playing back-to-backs here. Tell me what stands out to you.
So correct me if I'm wrong. The Cleveland line started at 2.5 and is now down to 2. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I mean, if certain truths, for as unpredictable as this NBA season has been, certain truths have bore themselves out. One of which is that Miami plays close games. That's all they seem to do. So I really liked it at 2.5 for Miami. Now that it's 2, I don't know that I like it as much. But I'm gonna, as I'll say again for our best bets, I think Miami's on the come up, and I just kind of similar to Dallas. I don't know how you trust Atlanta right now. I mean, again, not that you can trust Washington much more. But when you have two teams facing off that you can't trust either of them, and you're getting 4 points, at home for one of them, that to me that's the one I'd probably go against the public here as well.
Yeah, interesting, because I kind of feel the opposite way about Atlanta. I mean, this is an uninspiring Wizards team, regardless of if they're even winning games. Like, they won last night, but they won by 2 against the Pistons, and that's a team that has already started resting or sitting out players because of health reasons to get the tank in full effect. Not that they really needed help in that department, but this is not a very good Wizards team. And I mean, they just played a tough full game in which they barely squeaked one out. And you have an Atlanta team that's coming off a little bit of rest, at least. Trae Young is day-to-day still with the groin injury. This one has gone down from -6.5 to -4. So there is at least a little bit of concern that he might not go tonight. They haven't released an official injury report yet, but I kind of like this Atlanta line where it's at now. Like, this is just a team I trust a little more. Again, it's not the Pistons. It's not the greatest team of all time against the spread. It is the Wizards. I did want to ask. There is one really big number here, or actually two big numbers. One huge number and one big number. no Shai Gilgeous-Alexander tonight against Phoenix. OKC plus 13.5. Is that too many points?
It's enough for me not to want to go near this game. I quite frankly don't know what we're going to see from Phoenix. I mean, if someone told you the Suns for the rest of the year were going to run roughshod over the rest of the league, you'd believe them, right? I mean, that's conceivable.
Yeah.
And if somebody told you the Suns, it's going to still be kind of an easing in process. They still, are figuring out who's that fifth guy on the floor. I mean, it's been Ish Wainwright, but like they don't have a ton of consistency at a pretty important position, the kind of the other wing spot. And maybe it takes a little bit longer to come together. I'd believe either of those. I want to see more as far as Phoenix. You can tell me this is a 2-point game. You can tell me this is a 25-point game, and I'd believe either. So I actually think the line is about right.
I mean, if you take the average of 2 and 25, you get 13.5. That's some quick math for you. And the other big line, Denver -9 against Chicago. Denver has been smoking recently. Again, there's a Chicago team that's still fighting for a playoff spot. I think 9 might be a little too much, but this is a Denver team that has given you no reason to doubt them throughout the season. So this is one of the trickiest ones to kind of read in for me, honestly.
And this is another one, if you go by the evidence going into the break, and now they started off with 2 wins right out of the All-Star break, but since then has not gone so great for Chicago. The Bulls are another one of those teams that, like, if they just kind of torpedo down the standings from here on in, shouldn't shock anyone. They have not been a good team this year. Their net rating is better than their win total in terms of what it should produce. But things do seem to be going in the wrong direction. This is actually a line. It's not double digits, so I think for that reason that'd probably be enough, especially obviously with Denver at home.
One game that's not on your screen right now. One of the most interesting teams in the NBA as of this past week, the Boston Celtics, who are on a bit of a losing streak and have been the consensus best team in the NBA all season. They're still the title favorites, +10 or -10, I beg your pardon, against the Blazers. The Blazers getting 64% of bets, 49% of the handle. So pretty split in terms of where the money is. You trusting the Celtics to get back on track and in such a dominant fashion at -10?
They'll get back on track at some point. The Dame factor to me is why the Blazers are just not a team that it's wise to go into any sort of action with them. Like, maybe tonight's another night where he goes off for 45 or 50 or more points, in which case it's probably going to be a close game. And if he doesn't, again, they don't have this reputation, but like your Washingtons and your Chicagos and your Torontos of the world, the Blazers do seem to find ways to lose games that they are maybe in for a lot of it, and you look up and it's a bigger deficit by the time the final buzzer sounds. So I wouldn't go near it, but I think it is a big number though. 10 is a big number. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, if you're asking me to trust Denver -9 or Celtics -10, I'll take Denver in that spot over them. Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
Okay, so 2 bets last night missed. That doesn't matter. We're going back at it again today. We have 2 of the best bets to hit. Jonathan, before I tee you up, do want to tell everyone we have an Oscars free-to-play pool that's going on right now. All you have to do is predict the correct winners in the major categories for the Oscars, and you have a chance to win $1,000 in prizes. Again, it's free to enter. All you have to do is fill out a form, put in your email, and you get a chance to win up to $1,000 in prizes. Again, all you have to do is try to guess the correct movie. Just pick Everything Everywhere All at Once for the winner of anything, honestly, and you'll probably be in the running. Jonathan, time for a bounce back. What's your best bet for tonight?
I'm going to go under Donovan Mitchell. 26.5 points. That's -115 on FanDuel. So Mitchell played the Heat when Jimmy Butler was in the lineup once this year. Scored 16 points. One of his worst games of the season. Shot 6 of 17 from the field. And the more important number for me, 3 of 13 from deep. And why is that number important? It's because he played an entire game, 37 minutes against Jimmy Butler in the Heat. and only 4 shot attempts inside the arc. So to me, and I alluded to it before, I alluded to it yesterday, I'm going to keep going back to it. I think Miami is coming. I think they are slowly but surely starting to put it together. They just beat the Hawks 2 in a row at home, or the last one was at home. So I like where Miami's at, and I like the fact that Jimmy Butler, he's healthy. He seems to be healthy at least. He's taking on the assignment of the best wing or perimeter player that the other team has. He was guarding Trae Young the other night. Before that, he was guarding Jalen Brunson when they were playing the Knicks. I expect to see a lot of Jimmy Butler on Donovan Mitchell tonight. And I think the only way Donovan's going to be able to score, like the last game, is if he's jacking up threes. And I think that's a bet that the Heat are willing to make. And it's one I'm willing to make too, of course.
Yeah, Heat are a very, swarming type defense on the perimeter, and try to get the ball out of your hands as much as possible. Your bet kind of works for me, honestly, because I'm taking a different player in the same game, but taking an over. I'm taking Darius Garland over 26.5 points plus assists. You can get that at DraftKings at -120. You can get it up at 27.5 at around 113 or -113, -113. I believe it was on Bet Rivers was the best one. But I saw this at 26.5. That's what I took it at. So I'm just going to stay with the 26.5. This is a number he's hit in his last 7. And I mean, even talking about it on air, we were talking about that last Celtics game, where he's had these games where he hasn't looked good. But in these last 7 that he's hit it, in 2 of those, he hasn't even gotten to 20 points and he's still hit it. So it gives me confidence that regardless if he has an off shooting night and he can't reach 20, there's a good chance he might cover this number anyway. Again, this is well within his average. Like, this is not a crazy number for him. And a game like this, big game against the Heat, like this is, I'm not expecting this to be like a 95 to 90 game, which right on key, it's going to be like a 95, 90 game. But I'm expecting to see some offense. And look, I mean, if Donovan Mitchell just wants to pass the ball to Darius Garland every time, I'm completely fine with that. So there's no reason both of ours can't hit here.
Yeah, no, I actually think they do play well into each other. I think that, the one thing I've noticed, especially this year, the point totals are obviously very high. And I think the byproduct of that is you will get a lot of big numbers from second options, like clear second options. So Donovan Mitchell, clearly the number 1 guy on the Cavs. Darius Garland is clearly 2 behind him, where you'll get the big numbers, but they'll be quieter, in a sense. It's the best word that I could use. Like, I'm thinking about like RJ Barrett on the Knicks. There'll be he's averaged about 20 points on the year. And a lot of times you'll look up and you're like, wow, RJ Barrett had 20. Like, where did those come from? That's just like an example that comes to my mind because I watch them a lot. But I think that this holds true for a lot of teams across the league. And I think there's a perception about Darius Garland, like he's not making a big impact. He wasn't even really in the All-Star conversation. So like you look at this number and you're like, oh, it's 26.5 for Darius Garland. I think it's a nice number, like you said. He's been hitting it a lot. I think it's a really smart bet.
Yeah, I mean, if all he needs to give me is like 22 points, 6 assists, like that is well within his capabilities. He's averaging, guess what, 22 points and 8 assists. So that's well within reason there. I have a little bit of a kind of combo bet here. If you want some plus money juice, we should maybe name it the anti Jonathan Macri bet, because it's gone against everything that you have advised tonight. I really like that you can get Cavs -2 and Mavs -2.5. Get that plus 264 on DraftKings. And I know you are Mr. Big anti-Mavs, and for good reason. But I think the Pelicans just have not been good recently. Yeah, I mean, I know the Pelicans have not been good.
I'm more worried about the Cavs. The Mavs 2.5. I'm actually more okay with that. This is, again, I'm going against my own advice. This is one game where, again, it's a small number. That's the key. It's a small number for Dallas. And the Pelicans, like we talked about yesterday, have been incredibly inconsistent. The Cavs are the ones that would worry me here for that. Again, going on the road, a Miami team that I think is starting to play a lot better than their record would indicate. So of the two, I'd be more worried about the Cavs. But, again, you're getting nice value. So can't blame you there.
All that matters is that Donovan Mitchell hit under his number and Darius Garland hit over his number. That's all that matters for this episode. Jonathan, really appreciate you joining the show. As always, if you want to follow his work, if you want to follow Knicks Film School, they're on Twitter, they're on YouTube. You can see them at Knicks Film School, either CH or with a K. He's JC Macri, NBA on Twitter. Jonathan, I will talk to you next week. Get ready for the NBA week and maybe cede a little bit away to March Madness because it's gonna take over the hoops world.
Looking forward to next week already, hopefully in the midst of a successful West Coast trip. But until then, good luck and happy betting.